Hey everyone, so this video we are going to simplify radicals where there are a negative under the radical. So in Algebra 1, if you got to a question that simplified to this, we would say, no, you're wrong, you messed up, there's no answer. And so it's not that there's no answer, but there's no answer in the real set of numbers. And so we're going to move into working with imaginary numbers. And so the first thing that we need to realize is this square root of -1 can be represented using the letter I. So when you see I in Algebra 2, it represents the square root of -1. And so we began in the last video simplifying radicals, right? And so if I had the square root of 36, we just simplified it into 6, right? But now I have this negative. And so what has to happen is I'm going to break this or simplify this or separate it rather into two radicals. So I'm going to have the radical 36, and I'm also going to have a radical -1. So when you multiply radicals, you multiply the numbers under the radical. They're called your radicands. And so I can take this -1 out and then leave the radical 36. And so this -1, like we saw here, can be represented using I. And then we know the square root of 36 is 6. And so you're left with 6I. Okay, so this is the simplified version of the square root of -36. Okay, so I'm going to try another one with a number that is not a perfect square. And so for this case, I'm going to say -45. Okay, and so first I'm just going to separate it, right? I have my radical -1 and my radical 45. And so this becomes I. And that radical 45 we can break up into, remember we used our perfect squares. And so the square root of 45 breaks into square root of 9, square root of 5. And 9 is that perfect square, so this is going to turn into a 3. And so this whole thing comes down into these 3 parts that cannot be simplified anymore. And so it becomes 3I radical 5.